For the opener today, there were 3 extinctions in the Mesozoic. One of them, well, 2 of them were major extinctions. One was a minor. Do you know what caused it? They all had separate things that caused their extinction. Do you know the cause of one or even all 3 of them? There was one at the end of the Triassic, one at the end of the Jurassic, and one at the end of the Cretaceous. And you should know at least one of them because we've already talked about it. Any of the causes of one of the 3 extinctions in the Mesozoic? There's 3 different periods in the Mesozoic era. There's the who? There's 3 extinctions in the Mesozoic.
Naming them?
No. But I want to know what the causes were. There was one at the end of the Triassic, which was a major extinction. There was a one at the end of the Jurassic, which was a minor extinction, and then there was one at the end of the Cretaceous, which was also a major
I
extinction.
can tell you how all of those happened. Everything died. No,
not everything died, or there would be no life.
most things died in all 3 of them.
That's not true.
Asteroid impact.
Which one was the asteroid impact that you know of? The what?
Middle one.
Well, you don't even know about that one yet, but yes, there were asteroid impacts at the end of the Jurassic. The one that we've talked about is the end of the Cretaceous that killed off all the dinosaurs. But what they have in common is they all had some type of volcanic activity. It's just the one at the Triassic was not asteroid impact that triggered it. It was just the rifting of Pangea. So that's the one we're going to start with. Raichu, before we get into them, the actual end period for the Triassic was 201.3 million years ago. This was a very specific time when Pangea really started tearing apart, caused all different kinds of climate change, and that's what wiped out a large portion of the life. The Jurassic, which was 145.5 million years ago, took a lot of time to finish. This was a minor extinction because it wasn't just an abrupt change. It was more of a gradual thing that took about 25 million years to occur. And then the one at the end of the Cretaceous, sometimes you'll hear that the asteroid struck 65 million years ago. Sometimes you'll hear it was 66 million years ago. But the event itself started 65.5 million years ago. And that's the one that we're going to watch about the next couple days. And like I said, there were really 2 different documentaries that I was going back and forth between. But when I found out that a lot of you had seen Day the Dinosaurs Died in biology, that's why I decided to go with the other one, the Last Day of the Dinosaurs. It's the same thing. This is the last section of notes for dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and then we'll have the documentary a couple days, we'll review, and then the test will be Friday. When we come back from spring break, we'll do the Cenozoic. Next week.
So
Next
we're on
week
school next week?
No, next week is spring break.
Oh, time flies.
Oh, goodness. I swear.
I was in prison.
All right, so the Triassic extinction, it had to do with the rifting of Pangea, which was the beginning of the opening of the Atlantic Ocean. The Atlantic Ocean didn't really come into true being until the Jurassic, but it started in the Triassic. And you had all different kinds of volcanic activity. Now, not as long as the Siberian traps. No, Siberian traps was 1 million years of full strength and about 2 million years total of time of that flood basalt in Siberia that was just spewing out magma. The Central Atlantic Magmatic Province, or CAMP for short, which is what it keeps being called, was a lot shorter of a time period. 620,000 years of volcanic eruption is still a long time. And so we have all those gases being thrown into the atmosphere, which causes acid rain. You get nuclear winter. When you have all of this stuff being, all of this stuff being thrown into the atmosphere, you have all different kinds of climate change, whether it be warming or cooling. You have alternating back and forth. Sea levels rise, sea levels fall. You've got toxic water, and you have death of all different kinds of stuff. So this volcanic repetition happens in almost every single mass extinction. The large exception is the Ordovician, which was glaciation. Most of the other ones, in some way, shape, or form, whether it be the rifting of the planet itself, which is what happened here, or it be impact by asteroids, which was the Cretaceous and the Jurassic for that matter, triggers volcanoes to erupt, whether they be active at the time or they were dormant and then they were kick-started again. If there's like a hair in my nose or a fuzzy in my nose or something, my nose itched. I'm not hearing call up this time in the morning. So like I said, Ecopolis Camp for short. I'm going to mention all the specific types of volcanic epicenters more for earthquakes, but what it was that was throwing all these toxins into the air in each particular extinction event. This was a big extinction, major extinction. Okay. So like I said, Pangea was formed. It was one huge landmass with a little island off on the side. It started splitting into the northern and southern hemisphere, essentially, which is what started killing off the Tethys Sea, started opening up the Atlantic Ocean. The Tethys Sea wasn't destroyed is the wrong word, wasn't changed, didn't change its name, the body of water to the Atlantic until we hit the Jurassic. But the northern continent, which is what we're part of, was Laurasia. The southern continent, which would have been Africa, South America, Antarctica, Australia, India, that was Gondwana. Now, like I said, the Atlantic Ocean wasn't completely open. It just started the rifting, tore the earth apart. The central Atlantic, okay, the Atlantic Ocean, this is where all the magma started coming out. Not quite as bad as the Permian extinction. The Permian extinction wiped out 96% of all marine life and 76% of life as a whole. With the Triassic, yes, it hit the oceans harder, but it was about 76%. And then 20% of all life, all taxonomic families, that just means life in general, disappeared. Plants weren't as heavily hurt, particularly because of their vasculature. We've talked about that repeatedly. Land animals were not as hurt. There were some that went extinct. Some specific species did not make their way through the Triassic. This was not a nice time to live. But we wouldn't be here if it didn't. This is what saw the rise of advanced dinosaurs. In the middle of the Triassic is when we had the true development of dinosaurs. We had the true development of very early mammals. It was the fourth most severe of the extinctions, of the mass extinctions. There's been 5, and like we mentioned earlier, we're pretty sure we're in the middle of the beginning part of a 6th extinction with our insect crisis that we're having. As far as what died, most brachiopods, not all, most gastropods, bivalves, things like clams, obviously some made it through, or we wouldn't have clams, scallops, and most marine reptiles, not all, some of them made it through, but most of them went extinct. One species of ammonoid made it through. You do not need to know this particular thing's name, otherwise it would have been highlighted. I want to throw a picture on there. A conodont is like almost looks like snails, but with instead of the circular shell, the spiraled shell, like a nautiloid. And a large part of your vertebrates on land went the way of the dodo as well. So not complete extinction, but most of these things vanished. Just like in the Permian, one particular species of ammonoid made it through, or ammonite, same thing. What did make it through were the dinosaurs, the bigger ones, the pterosaurs, the flying reptiles, which are not dinosaurs. Obviously, crocodiles made it through. We still have them today. the descendants of Orthosuchus, turtles, mammals, and fish. Obviously, plants. I'm talking specifically about land organisms that made it through.
So like,
Whoops.
like lightning, food.
Yeah, a lot of land animals made it through. I mean, obviously, we had coral that survived. We had things like plankton that survived. I can't list every single family of species that made it through, or this would take forever. We know that plants were not heavily affected. The fossilized plants themselves, plus fossilized pollen or spores, which is what, I don't know how to pronounce that. Palynomorph, palynomorph, however you pronounce this. That's fossilized pollen and fossilized spores. Once again, you had seed coats, you had vascular tissue, it filtered the water through the ground itself. They were not as poisoned as the marine life was, that was just doused in the low oxygen, higher acidity, higher levels of heavy metals. That's why marine life keeps getting decimated time after time after time. Plants would have been the least affected. That's the way it's been ever since they had the vascular structure develop. Hey, that's all I'm going to mention about the Triassic extinction. The next one, the Jurassic Cretaceous, which is J for Jurassic. They can't use C for Cretaceous because they use that for Cambrian, so they use the letter K. That's why the next one is the KT extinction, the Cretaceous, and what they used to call the Tertiary, if I'm not mistaken. But this one was a minor extinction. It took a very long period of time for this to happen. We do have bolide impacts. I'm pretty sure I put the picture, I did put the picture on y'all's. You have a huge diversity of birds that are occurring, of the flying reptiles, the pterosaurs, which are not birds, that are diversifying. And now amphibians are one of the most sensitive land organisms that we have on Earth, but they really weren't affected in this extinction event. And then we have a big radiation of mammals as well, which eventually turned into us, the thing that looked like a rat. But a very spread out extinction, which is why this is a minor extinction. This is not a major extinction. Your major extinctions were number 1, the Permian, number 2, the Ordovician, number 3, the Devonian, number 4, the Triassic, and number 5, the Cretaceous. Well, at least, yes.
This question makes sense to me.
Which question makes no sense?
So which order of dinosaurs had all representative species surrounding the table? So like,
Yeah, I haven't gotten there yet. So which particular grouping of dinosaurs had at least one of each of its species? Like they didn't have extinction events. Like they all made it through, is what that is.
okay.
I haven't gotten there yet. I'm about to. With marine life, the things that couldn't move, sessile, can't move, they're always the heaviest hurt. The things that live at reefs, they can't swim away to where there's more oxygen or there's less toxicity, they didn't make it through. Most of your air-breathing reptiles in the ocean did. They didn't have to breathe the water through their gills. So they took it from the air. So your ichthyosaurs and your plesiosaurs, most species of them made it through. I'm not going to go over every single one. We've already done that. There were 3 large bolide craters, impact asteroid craters. And you guys have the image in your canvas, so I'm going to show you in a bit. One of these impact craters was larger than the one that took out the dinosaurs. I can't remember which one it is, but I know it was bigger. It was like 180 kilometers. 180 miles wide, where the one that took out the dinosaurs was 112 miles wide. So you've got impacts. Most of that is actually deflected back up, which is what's called ejecta. This is what blocks out the sun. This is what suffocates the animals. You get lots of like dust storms. We'll talk more about that with the Cretaceous extinction, the next one. So you get nuclear winter, you get loss of photosynthesis, you have major impact on herbivores, eventually major impact on carnivores. But this one, like I said, it took a longer period of time, so it wasn't this just abrupt. The organisms had time to possibly adapt. And those that adapted made it through. Those that did not made extinct. This is the Jurassic world. So you've got, I know they can't see what I'm doing. So this right here is the rifting, this part, the separation, is what started the Atlantic Ocean. Obviously, this is still together. So the Atlantic Ocean wasn't completely open at this point. The impact craters, okay, so let's see. You got to talk the way that they do. And the Mjolnir would be the one on the top. Warwick Wang would be this one down here in the southern part of Africa. Chukunuka. That's how the only I know how to pronounce that. Would be this one that was down by where what would become Australia. So India is here, Australia, South America, Africa, South America, North America, and then all of Europe and Asia. We also have a supervolcano over here, and we have two flood basalts. So all different kinds of volcanic activity was going on in the Jurassic. You get enough volcanic stuff thrown into the air, and you have these ejecta clouds that block out the sun, and it's going to drive the planet into nuclear winter. It's going to cool off. It's going to cause glaciation. It's going to drop the sea floor, or the level of the ocean, the sea level. And you're going to have all different kinds of toxicity going on. This is specifically why we have such a hard hit with our marine life. Our volcanic Piranha Entendeka, Botan Java Plateau. These are both flood basalts. This is like what happened with the Siberian traps. This is what happened with the camp. And then we had a huge supervolcano that came up out of the ocean. Volcanic activity is very, very, very common when it comes to extinction events. I said the only exception is the Ordovician, which was a glacier, solely a glacial extinction event. On this next slide, you guys actually have the dinosaur extinction. It doesn't go all the way to the Cretaceous, it's specifically the Jurassic extinction at the very, very, very end. It just doesn't go all the way to the asteroid impact. It goes up to the middle of the Cretaceous. Like I said before, we don't have enough time to do every single species of dinosaur. It's just not enough. All right, you guys have that image at the very, very, very end. Some dinosaurs did go extinct. This is the Jurassic extinction right here. Okay, so we have, and I know it's hard to see, but the Allosaurus went extinct. It's like T-Rex's little brother, whereas the Tyrannosaurus is this one. They're a different branch of the theropods, which is the top part. So we've got theropods up here. We've got sauropods here, and we've got the ornithixians down on the bottom. Megalosaurus also went extinct. That was the first named dinosaur. The ceratosaurs, they went extinct. They're sort of like your heavy barrel-chested, what you think of as a T-Rex, but it wasn't a T-Rex. In your sauropods, the smaller ones all went extinct. The bigger ones went off to become the titanosaurs. They actually made it through. Your sauropods were replaced by hadrosaurs. And of these new bird species that were trying to literally take flight, about half of them went extinct. But the bottom group, the Ornithixians, they all made it through. Stegosaurus only made it into the early Cretaceous and then it went extinct. But all of them crossed the Jurassic Cretaceous boundary. Right, so who did make it through? Ornithixians were the least affected. They're your cows of the Jurassic world, essentially. Your very large sauropods, which eventually turned into titanosaurs. They are called neosauropods. Okay, they made it through. And then most of your Coelurosauria, that particular type, which eventually became T-Rex. Spinosaurus technically was a different branch of theropods, but Spinosaurus made it through. They started in the Jurassic also. And the Spinosaurus, if you did not listen to the one from Friday, was the largest of the Cretaceous predators. It was about 3 feet taller than T-Rex was. T-Rex was about 20 feet, no, 17. Wait, Allosaurus was 17, T-Rex was 20, and Spinosaurus was 23 feet tall. Spinosaurus was just more horizontal than vertical. It was the top of its sail that was that high. And had a much more crocodilian looking jaw than T-Rex did. T-Rex was like a pit bull. All right, the Cretaceous Tertiary, the KT boundary. This was the one that the fragment of Baptistina slammed into off the coast of Mexico, the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. This is what wiped out all the dinosaurs. The avian versions made it through. Mammals made it through. Lesser reptiles made it through. Amphibians, smaller snakes, that kind of stuff. They all made it through. The Chicxulub crater, it's named for the town that it's right off of. Half of the crater is essentially in the ocean, and half of the crater is on land. I've actually shown you the topographical imagery of this before, like a long time ago when we did space. It was give or take a 6 mile wide chunk of rock. We've sort of already talked about this asteroid impact before. There is a very noticeable dark band in the rocks that they call the KT boundary, where below that you see the dinosaur bones and above it you don't. That dark band is filled with iridium. You have shocked quartz, which is also a sign of an asteroid impact. We've also dug down and done boreholes into it and pulled the material up. So we know it was an asteroid impact. We also know there was one that was before this one, about 2,000 years before this one. There was another large impact. It just wasn't this big. This thing gave off the amount of energy of about 2 million nuclear bombs. North America was essentially destroyed because the way that it came in at a 30-degree angle, which means it would have gone back up at a 30-degree angle. And on this image, oh, forgot there was one more. On the next slide, you can see how far the large ejecta pieces struck, like up into Canada. So literally, it's like skipping a stone across the water, but it skipped from Mexico to Canada. The Deccan traps in India burst into life. And so the one that took out,
So they went kaboom.
essentially, yes, it was so much energy that was only 1% of the energy of this went into the earth itself. But it was enough that on the other side of the planet, it triggered a flood basalt.
So do you think, like, since it's that big of an asteroid, like, it messed up, like, the core of the Earth or something like that?
Well, you basically had a giant hole in the earth where magma, I don't think they're unlocked.
Yep.
I don't think it is. It wasn't this morning. Nope. I don't know. I would try it though. They may have unlocked it since,
It looks like,
Why do they unlock that?
because kids are having sex in the bathroom.
Yeah.
That's why specifically.
This
Gross. All right, anyways. The actual impact where the asteroid essentially vaporized, part of it right at the Earth, and then part of it got kicked back out. Like I said, it's like skipping a rock across the water. Was over 10,000 degrees. The immediate impact core is hotter than the sun. So anything that was immediately around where that happened, so if you were a dinosaur right there chilling in Mexico, you're gone. Like it would have burnt their shadows into the ground. You've ever seen like with the nuclear bomb put it? Okay, so it literally would have burnt their shadows. You would have been able to have seen the bones inside the dinosaurs if you were behind them.
So
like it would have illuminated them.
So a shadow, so like basically just burn you. What you look
Burn
like
your, yes.
Yes.
I'm sure it has a name. That actually sounds plausible. But it's like an after image.
I'm looking it up.
But you would have had, so here, if you're close enough, you're incinerated. You don't even really realize, well, after your eyes literally pop in your head because they're seared. But okay, so the ones that are close enough are incinerated. Okay, if you're a little further out, you're gonna have 1,000 km/h winds at over 300 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, carbon shadow.
Carbon, okay, I was gonna say that sounds right. There's so many different things that were triggered. This asteroid couldn't have hit at a worse place. If it would have struck open ocean instead of right off the coast, then the ocean would have absorbed a lot of this energy. It still would have been bad. It just wouldn't have been as bad as this is.
I would have been like a 200 feet tsunami or something like that.
Probably no higher than that. So, like I said, ones that are right there at the impact area, they're toast. They're vaporized. When you're a few hundred miles away, then you're going to get your flesh torn off while you're being simultaneously cooked.
Yo, it's kind of hot.
Yeah, kind of hot. 300 degrees Fahrenheit
No.
is kind of hot.
Oh, literally.
This shows you, this was the image that I was talking about. So right off the Yucatan Peninsula is where it hit. Now, huge bolide ejecta, like we've pulled the material up from all the way up into Canada. Anything where it's yellow would have been flattened. You've got those 1,000-mile-per-hour winds. Obviously, as it spreads out, it starts slowing down. Close enough to impact, you're under hundreds of meters of debris. Okay, so let's pretend that you're like I don't know, maybe an Apatosaurus or one of the other large sauropods that were alive at the time. And let's say that you were lucky enough to be on the other side of a mountain and the mountain shielded you from this blast. And they probably would have survived. Well, here comes the rain of the ejecta and you start getting pelted with molten rocks as they tear through your flesh. You laugh. This is what they had to deal with. And then that 1% of the energy that transferred into the earth starts triggering mass earthquakes and starts triggering what used to be extinct volcanoes to start erupting. It would have been absolutely horrible, but there were still dinosaurs that survived this for a short period of time. Here comes the firestorm. It starts to burn all the vegetation. Eventually, your herbivores would have had no food. They would have died. Carnivores would have been like party time. They would have had food, but then they run out of food.
It's switching.
Yes.
So, the dinosaurs with long necks that are like.
Yes.
So, like, during this time, how big do you think the trees were, like, to have that long of a neck?
Well, as tall, if not taller, they wouldn't have had a reason to get that large to be able to feed off the tops of the trees.
So, like, some trees were probably like 200 or 300 feet tall, right?
The tallest of them. How big was Bradley Park? That was one of the ones that I had you guys do. What?
Can you imagine being that?
Not this one.
What?
Here's Cretaceous.
300 foot long neck.
Okay, so the tallest of them all was 160 feet tall. The tallest of all of the dinosaurs. So at least, so around 200 feet.
Holy crap. That's a lot of wood.
They weren't building houses, they were eating leaves.
That's what she
All
said.
right, so anyways, huge tsunamis, like up to 300 feet, possibly up to nearly 1,000 foot tall. They would have raced out across the Gulf of Mexico. They would have gone more than 100, and I know I'm not speaking in miles, I'm speaking in kilometers here. More than 100 kilometers inland, and then they would have receded. And they would have brought all those dead organisms with them back out into the ocean.
You think if that would have happened, like that would have hit like this area would all be in the water right now?
The initial shock wave would probably kill us before we would see the tsunami. We're more than 100 kilometers from the coast.
Well, no, like you think like once this area would be considered the ocean just because how big it was, like we would have hit. Like I don't know how to explain it, but
I don't think we would have seen the tsunami here, like literally here in DFW, but that original shock wave, that pulse, if you ever seen nuclear bomb footage, you see the shock wave, that would have reached here. I don't know if we would have survived that. If I go back to this picture, the red part, which we're in, everything within this red zone is essentially dead. Well, we're within that zone. Everything that's within the yellow zone is flattened. Not necessarily dead, but the winds are so strong that it knocks everything down. Okay. This extinction event's the third most severe of the 5. Wiped out 80% of life. The only dinosaurs, if you will, that survived, all the real dinosaurs went extinct. The crocodiles made it through, primarily because they're aquatic. And so if they were under the water, they had more protection. Birds made it through. So these are the only relatives of the dinosaurs that actually made it through. 13% of plankton made it through. About 20% of corals made it through. Those modern day corals that we have now. Yeah, one more. And then I got to double check online attendance again. I'm missing people. Last one. Plants are still widely spared. Now, I will say North America, its vegetation was destroyed. And Mexico, its vegetation was destroyed. It was right there at impact. What did, and it's not on here, but what did make its way back first were mold and fungus. And then after years of nuclear winter, we started having true plants coming back, your ferns primarily. And I'm actually going to let, as far as this extinction event, that's really what the documentary is the next couple days. It's more similar to like a Jurassic Park kind of thing. No, it's not Jurassic Park. But it shows, and it's modern, it's like 3 years old. It shows interactions, what could have happened between specific species. Once again, we don't know the social interactions of any of the dinosaurs. We have to base things off of the way that reptiles and birds interact today.
That's right.
Oh no, let me try, I need to, it's always cold in here. You guys act like it's not always cold in here. Let me stop recording.